Hey there, rulers, DMO73 here, bringing you the deck profile for the Arc List 1 Arky Boy. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to pre-order upcoming Force of Will sets, ccgprime.com for singles and supplies, cardodoko.com for those rulers in the international market looking for product, the Ruler School Circuit Series now offering our 2024 Quarter 1 Circuit Kits, and our guest lecturer members, Fight Ramen. Class is in session. So here is the list. As always, you can go ahead and jump right to it on Force of Wind in the description down below. And you can also go there to get pre-orders for Pilgrim Memories with Odyssey Games. Certainly not going to want to miss out on that set. So, Arc. Big old Monolith boy Arc. This whole idea of this deck is that we are playing lots of Replicants, and we are doing it in a very cool way by just shoving stones back in the deck, particularly Satellite. Satellite is the way that we're generating these extra stones, and then these stones are then going to just get shoved back into the deck over and over again. That's kind of the reason why we're playing the stone base we have, is because the stones really don't matter until we flip, but there is some elements of like, well, if we do flip, let's make sure that the Solarites that we're using are the ones that we need to actually cast stuff. So most of the time you're not going to be flipping in this deck, although I've talked about it before in the commentary. If you can find a turn where you can successfully slam Odin and then Judgment in the same turn, it's pretty back-breaking against most decks. Arc in general, again, when he's flipped, will get +1 or +5/+5 for every stone in your deck, and then can't be destroyed or anything by. So usually if your opponent just has one resource, they just don't have a way to answer this 4,000 or 7,000 7,000, especially when it's also supported by the Replicant Odin that's also going to be swinging and everything else. So we can play Replicants and Gears without paying their cost by shoving the stones back from the RFG into the stone deck, and so it also lets us use their activate abilities for that reason. So things like Replicant Nyarlathotep, I keep this in here just to be able to clear boards potentially. Replicant Odin to nuke stones. Replicant Genshi Tenshon is one of the ones you want to try to slam as early as possible, just because of the additional value it generates with being aggressive, as well as being able to draw you extra cards per turn, which is really nice because we are playing a small package of the Brad spells, particularly Light Curtain. I mentioned this before, there are decks that like to go wide, and sometimes Arc can't handle that, as well as troublesome resonators like the duo resonators that we might want to answer. Chivalry's Tears is really nice to be able to save your own replicants and double trigger their enter effects. It doesn't happen all the time because most of them require solarization to make things good, but you know, things like Replicant Shiva, Replicant Nyarlathotep, Replicant Kaguya, these are all things that can do things when they flicker. We're also playing, obviously, Conflict of Memory and Soul, and then Sieben's Troopers is nice for some interaction, because we can't play Lorites. Another nice thing about this deck is the fact that it can play King's Hopeless Scream for free, technically, because it's a Gears card, which then lets us, we're never going to get the mode to like discard our opponent's hand, but that always being able to draw 2 and give a -8/-8 to the board is very nice. And don't forget that you are just going to be jamming a bunch of tokens every single turn the more satellites you get, so you can just kind of eventually flood your opponent with the mobs there. Sideboard-wise, we're playing a Replicant Shiva and a Arc Grail Gears that we can grab at the beginning of the game, and then we're also playing a couple additional copies of Replicant Scarlet and some ways to be able to pop additions with the form of Spirit of the Crimson Moon, and then from there it's just free cost cards. Something to be said about the idea of Death Scythe and one of the Sacred Beasts, because they're 0-cost cards and help us replenish, as well as being able to help us deal with J-Rulers potentially. One thing to also potentially consider for the sideboard of this deck is the idea of things to play to the mirror. You're not calling actual stones to each other, so it's very hard to be able to get multiple satellites. You're just going to be hoping to hit more than one off the turn. So there's things that you can do to try to shore up the matchup with things like Chronopawns, so that your tokens become also having the 4/4 bodies, as well as Typhon's Asteroid Cluster, so you can start kind of generating some additional value that way. Just some things to consider as you're playing the mirror. But that is the deck. It's a ton of fun. It's definitely playing very differently. Feels very much like a raid boss kind of style deck, so if that's something you're into, it's very nice. There's something to also be considered about maybe just playing one copy of Dante in the main board, just in case you pair up against a Typhon player, but I'm not sure on that either. So let me know if you guys have been playing Arc differently in the comment sections down below. And until next time, this is DMO73 saying class dismissed.